our cloud PLM for medical device from document-centric to electronic record at the digital age. So we're going to follow the different stages available in the 13,485 norm. The stages that are design and development planning, design input, design output, design review, design transfer, design verification and validation, as well as design changes. So let's start with the design and development planning. How are we going to go from document-centric to electronic record? We're trying to go from document-based, such as Excel, Word, and PDF documents, to avoid problems like silhouette designs that are not shared between the members of organizations, to a more data-driven approach with an online global single instance innovation platform. So in the market, we have many PLM solutions such as Windchill, Aras, and 3D Experience. So these are different product lifecycle management softwares. I want to share with you a little bit about what Aras it's all about. So I'm going to show you a little video.
At what point does the speed at which business changes overheat the technology that supports it? Today, we are witnessing a massive change in the way business processes evolve. What used to be a gradual evolution over longer periods of time is now an unyielding revolution. For companies to stay ahead of the curve, they need to react to new market trends. How do they happen? Persistent political shifts, environmental and health issues, and regulatory matters are occurring more frequently than ever, often at the same time. In order to successfully implement process changes, you need technology that can quickly adapt, not only to known issues, but even to risks as yet unknown, before they derail your organization's financial plan. But where to start? It starts with innovation, your innovation. Companies that quickly develop innovative concepts will be positioned to beat their competition. But being in position is only half the challenge. To realize the value of your innovation, you need technology that develops your ideas into solutions that resonate throughout your entire organization. This is only possible when you build on top of a resilient.
Sorry for the sound, which is and the quality of the sound, which is not very good.
With tools that limit you to a vendor's predetermined model. Aras provides that solution. When you build with Aras, you are working on top of an open, enterprise, low-code platform designed to create solutions that are unique to your specific requirements. Build in missing functionality that enterprise applications can't provide for a complete end-to-end process across your applications. Whether you're building new applications or extending current.
Jennifer, perhaps we can hold the video because the sound is very poor.
All right. So to explain a little bit more about the video and how the collaboration works, we can move on the explanation.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the message here of a PLM solution is to have a platform, innovation platform, where all the stakeholders are working to develop the product. So the message here, I mean, instead to have documents spread out your organization, then you have a cloud database where all the stakeholders have the capability to work all together on the same product at different phases of development of the product. But I think we are going to try to explain that more on the next couple of slides.
Yes.
So what is a PLM solution? The main function of a PLM are as follow 3D, 2D modeling, project management, simulation, system engineering, and secure data. A PLM therefore makes it possible to manage different types of files while retaining complete traceability such as traces, histories, approvals, as well as a versioning system. And all of this is stored in a secure cloud managed by the company that owns the PLM. It is possible to import files from external software and extract them from the PLM. It's also possible to work in collaboration with external software. That is to say that there is a constant exchange of data during a process. Here is an example of collaborative work where there is an exchange of files between the stakeholders of a project. The needs expressed by the client are stored in the PLM. The engineers draw a plan from these needs and then send them all to subcontractor so that they produce 3D models that meet the need of the client. They store in the PLM.
So in this part, we will talk about project management process. We will compare two solutions. The first one is a standalone project management solution, and the second one is a PLM-based project management solution. So in the standalone one, the project management is completely disconnected from the project data and also from the required process that will carries out the project. So this will generate wasting time on working on incorrect information because you won't know if you're working on the latest information. You will also waste time on tracking down deliverables and on updating your schedule statuses. On the second solution, which is the contrary of the first one, your project management is completely connected to the project data and to the required process that will carry out the project. So here is an example. You have a schedule, you have a task on your schedule, you have a to-do task. You can assign a project member to this task. You can also assign a deliverable. The deliverable can be a specification, a document, a part, for example. And once the task is done, not only you will have the latest version of the deliverable in real time, you will also have an automatic schedule update. So this way you connect the execution to the planning, and this means that you will connect the design control to the design history file. So this is an example of a project creation on a PLM platform. Here we will create a new project. We will use a predefined template to create it. We will select the predefined template. Here we will select the model DHF template. You can customize your project name or description. You can also change a lot of other settings. We click OK. And here you have your new project. So what can you do on your new project? You can add members. The members can be internal or external from the platform. I will add some. Now you have your team members added. You can also browse the project structure that is predefined thanks to the template. Here you have design input, design output, where you will put your deliverables. You also have a predefined schedule that you will be able, of course, to customize. You will have the different planning phases, and those planning phases will contain tasks that you will be able to assign to the project members and also to deliverables like we saw previously. So now we will assign one of the tasks. We will assign the ideation and requirement task. As you can see, you can click on the task. The interface is super friendly. You can assign a priority to your task. You can also add a description. You can play with the percent of completion. Here we will assign a project number. We'll assign Jennifer. We will also assign. We can also assign a deliverable. So now we will select the marketing specification, which already exists on our platform. With a drag and drop, we'll assign it. And that's it. The ideation and requirement task is assigned to Jennifer.
And I guess Jennifer is going to do the task now. Do I am right?
Yes. We're going to move on to the design input part and how we're going to work on this task. So for the design and input part, I'm going to be working on the ideation and social innovation to improve the social collaboration in my organization, to more fluid and efficient communication, as well as to improve the quality of our work. All of this by reinforcing the capacity to innovate between our team members. So for this, I'm going to use an application available in my PLM software that is called 3D Stream, that allows me to create a forum for my project and all of the members of my team. Now, all of the members of my team are going to be inside a community, and we're going to be able to share and innovate between ourselves, whether these communities are intern to our ecosystem or extern. All of this by using intuitive content creation and social interaction tools. So let's see how this works. We're going to create the ideation part. So we're going to launch an idea. So here in this scenario, what I'm doing is I'm looking at my 3D model of a ventilator. So I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't it be nice if I added some wheels to this ventilator so it can be easier to transport? So I'm creating an annotation, and I can place it wherever I want on my 3D model. So right now, obviously, I should not make a decision by myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this to my forum, to my community, as an idea. So I'm going to write down a title, Easy Transportation, and I'm going to describe what this idea is about. So now I share and publish my idea. And right now I'm going to look at my post. So here it is, Easy Transportation. It has been published. And now I get a notification from my coworker that has watched my idea, and he thinks this is a good idea. So I'm going to like his comments. And now I'm going to change the status to my idea to a development stage. So now we can start working with this idea. Of course, I have to justify why we're changing the status. Now the status has been changed. And what is interesting about this is that this idea can now become a requirement. So now using the link available in my idea, I can see the content of this requirement, Easy Transportation. And with the properties, I can see that the content is exactly what I wrote down. Now, what it's interesting also about the management of requirements here is that I have a column that it marks the validation stage of my idea. So this is linked with test cases. So if in this case, I have a test case to test the wheels. If the validation is in stage blue, the test case has not been validated. Sorry.
Okay, could we hold on 1 second here, just to try to recap a little bit? So yes. First we see the project management. Project management, it's on PLM, it's really useful for the design control, okay? And most of our customers, they say, okay, we have an issue to try to harmonize the project management practices. So one way to harmonize the project management practices, of course, it's training, but also it's template. So it is what we explained just a few minutes ago. Here, the ideation process, most of the time, marketing people are disconnected of engineering people. So, and very often they are not on the same site. So there is no communication or no seamless communication between marketing and system engineering, for example. So here we have, and of course, the marketing people, they don't like the engineering tool. And so it's interesting on this kind of platform, as a Aras or Windshield or whatever, to have a tool which is in line with the experience expected by the kind of people. Okay. So for the marketing for ideation, we see something very simple. But however, once it is converted to a requirement, of course, because we are on medical device, these requirements would need to be validated. So this is what we demonstrate here. We have the idea converted to a requirement. How to validate a requirement? Of course, we have a test case. But of course, we need to follow up on what's happening. And this is the meaning of what we see on your screen. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes.
You continue.
As you said, we're going to be using this requirement as a marketing requirement. So I'm going to go look for my my requirement that I've just created from the idea to join it to my marketing specification that includes many folders with the different specification elements. Here I have the requirements, and as you can see, my requirements they have no identifier ID number because this is managed by the PLM application. Here I just have the title. So right now I can go directly to my requirements and go look for the requirement that I've just created. Now I just have to insert it, and I can see its content.
So in this part, we'll talk about requirements management. So here also we will compare two solutions. The first one is the standalone solution, and the second one is the PLM solution. So in this story, you are a requirement manager. You were a project manager in the last one. Now you're a requirement manager. So you are a requirement manager, you have a specification, a requirement specification. So here we suppose that you have a coworker that wants to add a requirement. And then you have other coworkers that also want to add requirements. What will happen here is that you will have to communicate with your coworkers and clarify their needs in order to update your specification. What can also happen is that a collaborator will update the specification without you knowing. So this is the first scenario is time consuming because you will waste a lot of time while talking to your coworkers in order to clarify their needs. And the second one, you will have a modifications tracking problem because your coworker modified your specification, and the modification history on an Excel file is not very accurate, and sometimes it doesn't exist. So you will also have another problem is that you don't have an end-to-end traceability. This means that you cannot efficiently connect your requirements to use cases, to some functions or some parts or some test cases for verification and validation. For the second solution, you're always the requirement manager. You have your specification on Excel or Word or Rectify. And you have access to the cloud, to the PLM cloud platform. What you will do is that you will import your already existing specification, or you can create one from scratch. This will allow all your coworkers to work on the same file, and you will also be able to see the modifications in real time, and you will also have a very accurate history of modification. So to summarize this, on the PLM requirement management solution, you will be able to define, to decompose, and to fulfill your requirements. How can you fulfill them? You can fulfill them by linking them to a design, like a functional architecture or your organic architecture, for example. Linking your requirement also to the implementation of the design, and also, for example, to test cases for verification and validation. All of this while maintaining end-to-end traceability between your requirements and all the other project objects. So in this video, what we will see is that we will create a system requirement that we will link to the marketing requirement created by Jennifer in the last video. So here we will start by what we call a traceability view that is on the PLM platform. So here we will enter the traceability mode, and here you can see in red that there is a missing link. This means that this requirement is not covered. So we will go to our system specification this time, and we will add a requirement. It's very easy to add a requirement. It's just a right click and add, and then we will put a title to our requirement. Here we'll call it ventilator on casters or ventilator on wheels, and then we will put a description. We can also, and then we will save a new version of the specification. Now we go back to our traceability synthesis. We will check the version of the documents, and here we will see that it will detect a new version of our specification. We select it, so now we are in the right version, and we go back to the traceability view. So here we are in traceability view. We will see that it's yellow. So we will, now that we have our system requirement, we will create a link between the system requirement and the marketing requirement, but by just drag and dropping it on. So now we go back and we can see that our marketing specification is fully covered.
Okay, before we move, I just forgot to launch my poll. So I'm going to start a small poll. If everybody can respond, it would be very, very kind. So the question is, do you manage requirement with Excel? If everybody can respond. And of course, the beauty of this poll, it is a result will be shared by everybody, with everybody. So then you can do a kind of benchmark regarding the people who attend the meeting. Okay. There's still some people who didn't vote. So if everybody can vote, I think it would be more significant for everybody. So I'm going to give some time again, few seconds. Okay, so I think everybody is beating about or is guessing. I close and I share the result. So you see that there's still a majority of people using Excel to manage requirements. Okay. Of course, Excel is a top #1 requirement management tool. Whatever you like it or not, but that's a reality. And I'm going to launch another poll if you would like to respond also regarding the project management and the connection between the project management and the deliverable. Okay. And we have something interesting again coming. Okay. I'm going to close the poll and share with you. Okay, so there's almost 70% of project management tools which are not connected to deliverables. It means that the status of the task is not driven by the status of the deliverable. Okay, so it's very common that people say, yes, it is finished, but when you check, it is not finished. Okay, let's continue.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm going to show you how to do a great design output with system engineering development.
It's an example. Huh? It's one of the examples.
With an example. So
yeah.
our journey starts with a classic V-cycle with the requirement management task, functionality analysis task, logical design task, and physical design for the engineering phase, the product development, and then the integration, verification, and validation for the implementation phase. It's a top-down development process that provides a strong product, and the PLM make it easier to achieve. And I'm gonna show you how. So you can find on the left our activities. I will start with the systems requirement that describes the stakeholders' needs and standards. So Jennifer showed you earlier a requirement, what was ventilator on casters. So I just rename it ventilator manipulation to make it more understandable. And once we start with a requirement, we can provide a functional analysis. So the functional analysis is used in a way to find how to satisfy system requirements. So we found out that the transportation function, it's how we name it, can satisfy this requirement. So it's a function that provides service to the users, and the next task is to working on the system design, the logical feature. So the logical feature are abstraction of the systems without being solution oriented. So we found out that tools are available to fulfill the transportation function, such as the movement system and the carry system. Then, once we have the logical design, we can ask a specialist a solution to provide the logical feature and the function. So in our case, we found out that we can use wheels. That's why Jennifer called the requirements ventilator on casters. But we also can have a belt track and handle for the carry systems. So it's solutions that can fulfill the requirement. And I will show you that with the PLM, we can have a traceability to manage the product from the requirement to the function, to the logical, to the product.
Perhaps here I can add some points. It is why this traceability makes sense. Indeed.
Okay, so it makes sense. I will launch the video in the background. It makes sense because if today we have a requirement that evolve as a standard, medical standard, for example, you need to ensure the traceability from the requirement to the parts, to find easily on which parts you need to do the modification. And in another way, if I modify a part, I need to find which requirements are impacted. So in this video, we already have created the functional that are blue boxes represented, and the functional, the logical feature, sorry, that are green boxes represented. And we do the traceability easily with drag and drop from component to another. We can navigate through the links that are displayed on the top left corner or bottom left corners that you can see here. And the strong point is that in the traceability synthesis, you have the same link implementation as shown before. So you do it in your engineering tools, and you can find them back in the traceability synthesis.
So here it is quite, I mean, this is one main difference from document to electronic record in a PLM. Visualizing the traceability this way, it's only possible if you have all the data on the same database. Of course, if your information is spread out across a Word document, Excel document, CAD files, or whatever, it becomes more and more complicated, difficult, time-consuming, and a lot of things, of course.
And it's easier to use than Excel files. Oops, I miss my shot. So to sum up this design output, we ensure traceability from requirement to product components. We can perform impact analysis in both ways, from requirement to product and to product to requirement. And the other point that can be noticed from systems engineering is that we can reuse components in other system contexts. So if I have, for example, an electronic card on my systems that is used in another systems, I can use the same PLM components. And if I do modification from one product on this component, I can also see the traceability from the other product. And I think I've finished this part, so I'm gonna give the end to my colleague.
So here in this video, we will be able to see the full potential of the PLM platform in terms of traceability. So those are examples of the many objects you can link. So we'll start. So here we can see that we can browse the requirements layers. We can also browse the functional layer with the functions and the sub-functions, and we can see the link between the functions. We can also browse systemal diagrams. Here we can see an activity diagram. We can also browse the logical layer that we saw in the previous video, where here we can see the components. So those are just examples because there are many things we can trace. So we go back, we can we can see that we can browse other systemal diagrams. Here we can see block definition diagrams with the system architecture. We can also browse the product layer. Just remember that all those objects are linked. There are implementation links between them. Here you can see that we can browse the simulation reports. Those are simulation results from the PLM platform. So yes, that's it.
Design review.
So here we will talk about design review. So here you're a project manager again in this scenario. So the project manager, before performing a review, he will have many questions. Have user needs been identified? Have user needs been properly translated into technical requirements? And are we ready for design verification, for example? The problematic here is that the medical devices are getting more and more complex. So this leads to a high number of requirements and to an even higher number of functions and parts and reports, for example. So reviewing all of these projects' data is very complex, especially if they are saved, for example, in different tools like Cameo System Modeler or in Excel or in SolidWorks. So without if they are saving in different tools, it will be really hard to perform a review in them, without forgetting that in order to perform a good review, you will have to identify every object you're reviewing. We'll have to insert the review date and also the individuals performing the review. So here we'll see how we can perform a review on a PLM platform. So we go back to the traceability synthesis. We enter we switch to the review mode. We can browse our system specific requirement specification. So here we will just select a chapter, for example. We can leave a comment. By here I say that to check the content of the chapter again. We can also browse the external model-based system engineering diagrams. Here we can select every part of the diagram and we can leave a note. Here I say that to put a name on the flow. We can also browse the logical layer. So we can browse every layer on the traceability synthesis. Here I say that there is a missing link between this component and another. We can also review simulation reports. We can select a part of the simulation report, and for example, here I am asking the simulation engineer to try with another value of the force. So what is interesting here is that we can go back to the review synthesis, and we can see all the comments I made with the objects linked to these notes of the review. I can also see the person that performed the review and also the date of the review. We can also replay to the notes or modify them or close them. There is another way to perform a review. It's the phase gate review. Here we are on our planning. We have phases. We have the design input phases, the design output, and between those two phases we have a gate that we will call design input review, where we'll do the design input. We can enter this gate and we can see that we can add a checklist, and on this checklist we can add checklist items. So we will have to approve those checklist items that it has been done, that we already reviewed everything. So now we will refresh our interface, and we can see highlighted in red that the gate has been passed, because we approved all the checklist items.
So now for the next point, we'll be talking about the design transfer part of our project. So for this, we'll be talking about the configuration management and how we can define and manage product lines with the different models and the variable elements that contain different features, options, and rules. All of this to be able to manage all the different configurable structures that capture the different content such as parts and technical documentation that we often have in Excel or Word documents. All of this to configure a feature-based structure to meet the customer needs. So still with the ventilator product line, we'll be talking about the different models. My product line contains, for example, two different models, the A1, that is the ventilator, and the A2. We'll be focusing on the A1 model that includes two different model versions. So when we talk about model versions, we're talking about evolutions over time. So here we have the first version that has no wheels, and the new version, the number 2, that has wheels. So normally this document it's available in format Excel, and it contains the 4 different versions of my model. For example, there's the first configuration that is blue without casters. The second one is green without casters, and the third and fourth have casters, but they're different colors. Now, this specification contains also the variants and options. Variants being the color of my ventilator, the value being blue or green, and the option to have wheels added to the ventilator. So this specification is going to be a part of the design history file or also in the device memory record. And I'm looking to get this into my PLM software. So one approach I can have is to have my product line with the model ventilator and adjust this according to the phase of my ventilator, as if it is a prototype, the model, the first model, or a pre-series model. So here in my prototype, I'm going to have the different configurations. For example, blue with wheels, blue without wheels, green without wheels, and green with wheels. So I'm going to show you how this would look in my PLM software. So here I have my prototype version with the different configurations. And I can also link the document that I've just shown you that contains all the specification. Now, this is a different look into the model. So here I have different filters that I'm going to show the different configurations that I've just created. For example, I'm choosing to show the configuration wheel blue with wheels. And now I can change to the configuration only blue without the wheels. Now, what is really interesting about this is that my configuration is linked with the 3D model, and it has the variants and the options that I need for each configuration. So as I said before, we can manage the configuration according to the development phase. So as I said before, model, pre-series, and prototype. So I now can come to my model and say that this is part of the ventilator product line for the ventilator model, that I want to include the variants and options. And I can also say that this belongs to the prototype version. So once we've managed the configuration management, we can pass to the bill of materials management for the design transfer. So my engineer will have done the engineering bill of materials with all the parts of my product. And now I can work with the manufacturing bill of materials. What is interesting also about the PLM software is that it's going to let me make the difference between the engineering items make or by intent by indicating if the buy part is a provided part, or if it's a fabricated part by our organization, we can indicate that it is a manufacturing assembly. And we can also manage the service bill of materials. So right now with the video, my colleague is going to explain to you what is this all about.
So the PLM PLMs allow you to visualize the products and navigate easily between the trees on the left, the EBOM trees, and the 3D view. So if I select an object on the trees, I can visualize it on the 3D views, and if I select an object in the 3D views, I can see it in the trees. We also can notice that we had SolidWorks icons on our 3D experience icon. It's because we developed the product with several CAD software, and the 3D view is compatible with all of that. So we can also navigate to connected objects, like from the ventilator to the ventilator function. to the other connected object with all these links. And we can also access to the documentations linked to the part or 3D assembly. So the classic use case about that is I don't remember where to find my documentation from the tree. So I select the item in the 3D view. I localize the item in the trees. Then I drag and drop my documents. I will go back. Then I drag and drop my document to the 3D viewer, and I can see my my drawing, for example. So for the MBOM, the transition between engineering and manufacturing, we can see the structure of the product as a logical assembly, as a logical manufacturing assembly. So how the product is made, and the 3D just implement each phase. So each part implement all of that. For the SBOM, the service bill of material, you can design service kits such as replacement parts and material such as grease, for example, for maintaining the bearings that is located here. And we can also have access to a spreadsheet for both of the BOM, MBOM and SBOM, to summarize and easily edit the information. We can find columns like mean time between failure and mean time to repair, replaceable parts or repairable parts. So you can manage your SBOM and MBOM like this. At last, you can modelize the planning process for both MBOM and SBOM again with a 3D viewer showing you the implementation of parts again. So according to the process, the 3D view evolves. So if I can go back a little bit. So at this stage, the product is at the beginning. So I don't have so many parts, I only have the casing. Then I just add the arm and the shaft, then the motors, and at last the tubing. So at the end, we can synthesize also these informations as a Gantt process planning.
Okay, thank you, Cyril. So I have a small poll. Sorry for the question when we see that, but that's part of the game to have some poll. So would you mind please to respond to my poll? Do you manage your BOM, either EBOM or MBOM, using Excel? Yes or no? And here I'm really surprised. So that's interesting. Okay, so let's close and share. And I will have vote that majority of people manage Excel using BOM. So perhaps people manage the BOM, part of the BOM on the manufacturing BOM using their ERP. And my question was more about the EBOM. Okay. But okay. And regarding your configuration, I'm talking here about the development configuration, not the production configuration. If people can also respond. Okay. So it will be interesting to to see how people would like to. Okay. So here, most of people, they do not use Excel. Okay, that's interesting. It will be interesting to see with kind of tool they manage the BOM. Is somebody okay to share his experience regarding the BOM management? And then I will open the mic and he can share with us. No candidate? One candidate? Yes, no? Not so much? Okay. So let's continue. And let's move to design verification and validation.
So hi everyone, I will talk about how simulation can be useful for medicine device in design verification and validation. So simulation can be used as a way to test and validate. You are able to import your project in a 3D simulation environment. You can create behavioral analysis or optimize the design. This will generate output data to be imported directly in the PLM in order to unify your simulation data, or the possibility to share it with your collaborators that will be able to evaluate, validate, or classify your work. So here we have the case of a kinematic simulation. So starting from the ventilator concept, you are able to import the project on a 3D virtual environment. We will focus on the arm motion. So as you can see, once the different items are linked and the mechanism is created, you could look at the representation of the mechanism through a reader and see the motion of the arm between the two limit angles, so 30 and 80 degrees. After that, you have the possibility to generate output data and use several tools available on the PLM. For example, you could see the trace of the arm in a graph, so in time, as well as the associated values. You can also create, after that, 3D shape scanning the entire arm movement in 3D, and then mix both previous structure with a new 3D shape to visualize the result in all directions. So now let's connect on the PLM to visualize our work in a special tape devoted to the simulation. So at the back, as you can see, the 3D plate contains the previous structure. We could add annotation to communicate a requirement. So here, the motion between the two limit angles. Then you can validate it. You can also select the animation that we have done on the previous simulation. Once you are satisfied, you have the possibility to take a snapshot of the widget and share in the 3D stream community to share the result of the simulation. So you could write the object of the post, some details about it, for example, where we can find the 3D animation. And at the end, once you are validating, you could see a new publication on the stream community. So simulation can be useful in order to optimize the design of your product, especially in medical device where your product must resist to various conditions. The PLM allows you to compare different simulations. So in our case, we simulate an arm for which particular external constraints are applied. One of the two simulations considers the steel arm, whereas the other one is made of aluminum. So before starting, we can visualize the two simulations in 3D quite quickly, thanks to the different widgets. First, we have to import the requirements that we want to verify. Here, we are interested in the stress and the maximum displacement. As you can see, these requirements are associated with interval of admissible values. that will allow us to decide which one of the two is the best solution. And we also try to minimize the value obtained. So as you see, indicators are displayed directly to indicate non-compliance with the requirements and display the valid solution in green. So you can visualize the solution containing each step of the simulation. So for example, you could visualize the materials, the constraint, and the criteria that we study. You can play the animation, you can add sensors, and so on. And finally, you can isolate the valid solution from the other alternatives so that the PLM allows you to make a decision. So here we have an example of the report generation that we want to validate and classify on the DHF. Starting from the same arm analysis, where we have isolated the arm, we can display the path of interest in our simulation environment. We can browse through the different simulation results showing the criteria we wanted to study, for example, displacement, the stress, the deformation, and then we can generate a simulation report in a Microsoft format containing all the next information. So test conditions, the sensors, the results, the list of parameters, and the quality of the simulation. So this report will be registered locally on your own computers and will take the following form. So here we have the report. After that, we can connect to the PLM where we can share the report to all our collaborators. And you can see one of them has assigned me a task where he asked me to attach the previous report simulation. So here we can see the task with a description. And I'm going to the database to search for the previous report that I can drag and drop into the task. After that, I can save the work done. And I can write a comment to explain the completion of the task. So I change the task into the completed state and check that my report has been correctly saved. Once the verification has been done by the expert, I am able to classify this report in the design validation section on the DHF. So here you get the manipulation, and we can see that the document has been correctly classified into the design validation section. So here you have a global view of what we can do with simulation. This will considerably reduce the number of physical tests. These tests can be constraining in terms of cost, resources, and time. And by the way, the PLM is free and accessible for all your collaborators. And that's all.
Thank you, Daniel.
So
we mean
shall we move on?
Yes, but just a few words. I mean, what we try here to underline it is that with a PLM, you do not share only files, flat files. I mean, you share 3D geometry, and when we have the geometry, then you can you have the door opening to simulation, and also it's a kind of gate to a lot of engineering practices. Okay, we see about architecture, we see now about simulation. So this collaboration, this kind of collaboration platform really bring also new engineering practices or method and facilitate, because we can see what the other colleagues do, and we can share and work more easily on the development of the product or the development of the new experience. okay, medical experience. And indeed, controlling the change or change management is a hot topic on medical device, okay, because everything need to be controlled, and most of the time, people, they have forms where they write with the paper or they sign on paper all the change on parts, on requirements, on everything. So here we are going to have a kind of example of how we can move to an electronic change management process connected to all kind of objects that we have seen until now. So Jennifer, I think it's up to you.
Yes, so we'll be talking specifically about enterprise change management with the help of the PLM. So we're going to be looking at how to revise and release our elements, and how to apply or modify existing objects, and how to introduce new objects without just applying changes without our members knowing about it. So this process will take 4 different stages. The first one, creating an issue, followed by how to create a change action, followed by the task of effectuating the modifications, and finally, the approvement or disapprovement of the modification. So I'm going to show you a video of how we've created a change on our ventilator. So in this part, I'm looking at the wheels that have been created for the ventilator, but we've noticed that they're not the size that we expect them to be. They're actually bigger than we expected. So here, Alexander, the user Alexander, is creating an issue when he is saying that the caster size is not the one we wanted. So something really important is that he can signal in our model what is wrong with the model, and he can adjust the priority to this change. He can notify the coworkers. So here he selects serial. He assigns someone the change. And he could even attach some documentation, technical documentation, if he would like to. So normally the issue is now created and the users have been notified about this change. So here we have the issue with the priority to do. The caster size needs to be modified now. And we'll now create the change action that would allow us to effectuate the modification. So now we're going to generate this change action from the issue with the same title, the same description, and we can specify the date that we need this modification to be effectuated. So we're going to assign a member to the change modification task. So here the assignee is Stefan, who will now need to read what the proposed objects for the change are. So here are the wheels. The operations to effectuate is to modify, and the reason to the change is because, as I said before, the wheels are not the size we expect them to be. So now when he's going to effectuate the modification, he has the activity that must be done and the element that it must be changed. Now here, the user Stefan is now working with the wheels. He's going to change the size of the wheels. He evaluates and he releases the work done. And now my change action is changed to the state in approval, from in work to in approval, as the next person could approve or disapprove if the change is according to what we expect it to be. So now, as another person, I'm going to compare my previous object with the new object that has been modified. So we're reviewing the modification, and we can see in blue the size before, and in orange the actual size of the cluster. So for me the change is okay. So now I'm going to approve the change. I'm going to comment that the size is good for me now. And now you get the notification that a change action has been completed. So what is interesting about this is that when we effectuate modifications in our projects, we need to notify our colleagues and all the team members. We cannot just effectuate a change just like that, because it can go under the radar, and a modification that is just like that, it can cost us a lot, whether it's time or money. So how does...
Yeah, Jennifer, yeah, go on.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to talk about how the service we offer you is to analyze and evaluate the current methodology that has been implemented by you, and how to get you a more PLM configuration to help you with your configuration and validation, also as the reverse engineering process, to look up to your roadmap and effectuate different audits to evaluate the current process and suggest an improved process, as well as propose a PLM solution to use with your coworkers. We offer different trainings for change management. We offer trainings for requirements management and for project structure, as well as configuration management, and of course trainings for quality and regulatory management.
I mean, we have developed this offer because we realized that most of the time people, they know their pains. They know the limit of a document approach. They know the limit of not able to have electronic signature. But what is quite difficult for most of customers is to be aware about the latest possibility or capability of the PLM actors on the market. For them, it's quite impossible to be aware about what's happening, what is available now in cloud to improve my approach. Of course, I know that I have pains, but I have a constrained budget, but I have no idea, or I do not have time to lock the door of all the PLM vendors to see how they can help me. So this is a high-end positioning to say, okay, let's first see where you are. Let's agree all together a reasonable roadmap of the company based on your resource, based on your budget, based on your time, based on your context. And once we have agreed this roadmap, then we can continue to support you by selecting a PLM on cloud mindset, trying to configure the PLM, not to customize the PLM. Okay. Indeed, validation is a prerequisite if we want to keep electronic record as regulatory records. No choice. We also design a reverse engineering offer, because when we discuss with customer, most of the time they say, okay, I understand the benefit of simulation, but I do not have engineer with enough skills to do that. Or requirement. Yes, of course, I have requirement. Of course, I will be very happy to have architecture, but I do not have the people able to do it. Okay. Or even today, I have to do some reverse engineering. So I understand that I can do it with a modern PLM, but however, what I can do with my legacy data. Okay. So it is really important for us to think about the migration of the data, migration of the requirement, migration of the architecture, migration of the BOM, migration is key for this kind of transformation project. And most of the time, people, they do not have time, and the software editor is not their business, and so on and so on. So it's why we propose this service. Okay. And of course, digital transformation starts by people. So if your people are not trained on methodology and on tools, nothing will happen. Okay, nothing at all. That's why we developed this offer regarding requirement management, configuration management, and here we do not have time to talk about quality and regulatory, but indeed this is part of the deal if we want to move from document-centric approach to a data-centric approach. Okay, so this is what we built, discussing with our customer and to see their pain, and also with COVID-19, indeed it is pushing the board to invest on this kind of situation, because everybody has understood that remote working will be more important than by the past, and we need to say goodbye to old system or legacy system with VPN and all this. I mean, all IT infrastructure, which is not today adapted to the current context and the future of the company. Of all company, we will need to innovate, co-innovate with partner. We talk about collaborative space. Find the good skill to develop the product. It means find the good engineer able to do simulation, find the good engineer to build the good architecture, find also the good quality guy able to review the data and not review the process, because most of the quality people today, they review the process, but they do not review the record, or not enough. So we need to change, and this is the offer that we have built for you. So if you have some question, we are just in time now. So it's time to provide us perhaps your feedback, and if you have some question, please raise your hand or send me send the question, and then I will open your mic. So no question at all. Or perhaps even just a feedback, I don't know. Everything is clear? No, not so clear, impossible. Okay, so if there is no question, it's not a good sign for us. It's probably we have not been so clear. Okay, so I have perhaps a question. Okay. Very nice presentation. Congratulations to your team. Yes, thank you very much, Xavier. If there's no question, yes, I'm going to congratulate the team. We have done an amazing work and research to build this presentation.
Yes, and if you happen to have a question over time, do not hesitate to contact us. You have our mails for all the teams. So if you have any questions after the webinar, you can send us your question.
Okay, so thank you very much. We are on time. Don't be shy. Write us an email if you want to have a demo or whatever. It will be our pleasure. Okay, thank you very much, and have a great day, everybody. Bye.